I mean, moving fast. And I still walk too fast now. Or sometimes, just last night coming back from tennis, I said to my wife, "What are you doing back there? Come on!" And it's like just got off the.
Welcome, everyone, to Seek, Go, Create. This is your host, Tim Winders. I am, for those that are just joining, an executive coach. I work with leaders and leadership teams, and also I'm an author and do a lot of cool stuff. Host a podcast here at Seek, Go, Create. This is where we redefine success, business, leadership, and in ministry. And today our conversation is going to be about all of those things. We're going to be talking about having to redefine success when it comes to starting a family, when you're a successful business person, and what happens when you find out that life is actually hard. And we'll talk about that. So I'm glad you're here at Seek, Go, Create. I'm going to continue asking all of you to share these episodes with people, because the number one way that people get exposed to new podcasts is when someone that they know texts it, shares it with them. I believe this is going to be one of those episodes today. So welcome. Glad you're here. Thank you for joining us at Seek, Go, Create. Today, we have Johnny Sirpilla as our guest. He is a legend. Get this. He is a legend in the RV industry. And most of you, if you don't know, I broadcast Seek, Go, Create from the passenger seat of our RV. So you can bet we're going to have some conversations about RVs. He's an owner of many businesses, founder of Encourage LLC, and the author of the book. I've just finished reading it. Life is Hard, but I'll Be Okay. And I want to read the tagline for this book because it's going to, I think, define a lot of our conversation today. The tagline of the book, Life is Hard, but I'll Be Okay, is the power of hope and emerging through pain and learning to live with gratitude. That says a lot there. Johnny, welcome to Seek, Go, Create.
Tim, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, so glad you're here. I've enjoyed your book, enjoyed learning about you and getting to know you just through my research. Before we get going here, you actually had a massive bio that had so many things in it. I gave an abbreviated introduction there, but before we get started here, let's just say we meet each other, which we have just sort of met, and I ask you what you do. What do you tell people when they ask you that question?
Well, I used to tell people in the last few years that I retired, and now I'm kind of following my passions. My wife doesn't let me get away with saying I'm retired, so because I'm still working so much. So I like to say I'm repurposed. And so I find myself in my 50s being repurposed and focusing on passion projects and businesses that I think are meaningful, interesting, and kind of captive in my mind and spirit, kind of captivate what I want to do at this stage of my life. And so I'm taking a lot of my past experiences in leadership and leading in small businesses and in the large corporate stage as well. And then doing board work, some public company board work, private company board work, volunteer board work, more of that to just offer leadership guidance. That's kind of my lane where I like to be. So you and I share that. And I'm at a pretty exciting stage of life.
Very good. Sounds like you're able to work on a lot of things. So then why would someone who says something like that, I'm going to go ahead and dive right into the deep end here, write a book that says life is hard? Because many people, this is where we get into the redefining success here at Seek, Go, Create. Many people would hear that and go, charmed life, everything's great, no issues, no challenges, anything like that. And I've read the book. So, and truthfully, as I got into the book, I was reading a little bit for research and all, but I was really drawn in to the story that you and your wife went through. And this might be a time to go ahead and share a little bit of high points of that so that people kind of know where we're headed. But why? Let's big picture first. Successful in business, probably finances are okay, if not better than okay, than most people would claim. Why would life be so hard?
Tim, that's a great question, because I think life is just hard. I don't think that it is something that if you have material success, that means that life can't be hard. It doesn't mean that if you have personal success, that life cannot be hard. And so I think life is really hard. I just really do believe it. And the title came to me as you read, from being posed at a keynote speech that I was giving. Somebody asked a question, what do you wish you knew when you were my age? And it was a group of college seniors. And so my answer was, I wish I knew that life was going to be hard and I'll be okay. And it really was hard for us, in spite of the fact that we were living a charmed life. We had our youth, we had our health, we had our careers. My wife was killing it in pharmaceutical industry and financially doing better than me. And I was so proud of her. And I love telling people that side of our business careers, because I'm kind of known for that. Yet my wife was the one that got the faster start, and the one that, we saved every penny she made and lived off of what I made. And so for me, it was a charmed life. And from the outside look in, it was a charmed life. But we ran into a hard time, and we were not able to have children, and we spent years trying. And after a number of years of that, we became pregnant. And I say very pregnant because we were pregnant with triplets, and our dreams were made clear. They were revealed. They were right in front of us. And I've always been fascinated with multiples. So to becoming a dad of triplets, it was like winning the lottery 5 times over. It was just unbelievable. And it was great until it wasn't, until they were born prematurely and they passed away. And then I really started to understand what I thought was hard in not achieving our dreams of becoming pregnant had a whole new definition, redefined what hard was. We thought the years of infertility was hard. Child loss was much harder. And so I love, your tag of redefining success in leadership and in ministry, because that's exactly what I'm doing in ministry in this part of our life, and talking about what happened with us and redefining what was going to make us happy.
Yeah, the reason I like that and your story resonates so well, I don't know if I have this thought, and this could be a good thought or bad thought. I think it plays into the book that you wrote. I think everybody's got this journey they go on. And I think that there will be struggles along the way. I don't hope for it. None of us wish for it, but I think we all face it. And I love what you did with the book, and is that you basically told your story so that people could see it from a deep standpoint. I was really drawn in. So it's interesting with us. We've had some challenges with businesses that have had some issues that led to financial challenge, but never with children type issues. And so it was really educational for me to read, because we've been around people that have, and I don't know that I understood it as well until I read your book and understood some of the things. In fact, I would be reading it at night, and I'd talk to my wife about it, about some things that came up from it. And so I want to drill down on that word success though, Johnny, because so many people, they define success a certain way. And my guess that you and your wife, when y'all were newly married and early on, y'all had this definition of what life might look like. And it sounds like that was rocked, changed, redefined, whatever words we want to use, real early on. Take us back to that and what was going on through your mind. High achiever, business. I'm guessing your wife was, if she was doing well, high achiever. Y'all probably thought you controlled your world a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So walk through that early stage of when you kind of started realizing maybe you don't have total control over this thing we call life.
For us, it started the first month we didn't conceive. For me, because I'm like, wait, you have a goal, you take the steps to achieve it, you set the next goal, and it didn't work the first month, and the second month, and the first year, and the second year, right? And so tests are showing negativity, right? It's not working, and that just didn't resonate. with me, with either of us, whether athletically or scholastically. I mean, we compete, we achieve, we set goals, we reach the next one. So success for both of us was very clear that it was going to involve the family unit. That's where success was first. And then the careers and the other ways of giving back and all those things were other layers of success that are added on top of that solid family unit. So the dream of becoming pregnant and having our first baby was just the beginning of building our success life together. And so when we failed in that, and failed at it repeatedly, it was hard to feel successful. From the outside, we were successful. And as you read in the book, we are keeping it a secret. And I want to say, Tim, that the book isn't just really about a family building journey. That's just the story, the backdrop to redefining success, to looking at our mind and reframing thoughts, right? And whether it's financial challenge, work challenge, relationship challenge, loss of a child, whatever it might be, we had to keep our heads right, to keep our marriage on track. And so that's where for us that we did feel successful in our marriage, in terms of our relationship, because that process drove us closer together. The infertility years brought us closer together, even than we already were. And I think we had a pretty flawless relationship. But even after Nicholas, Mary, and Peter died, we were so cemented together that nothing was going to rock our relationship. And it really hasn't since.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things, just to clarify, from reading the book, I do agree with you. It's not just about a journey of a family situation. I do think there's value. I actually saw leadership principles. I saw spiritual principles. I'll be asking about some of those here shortly. I saw a lot of that in the book. The reason for me it was so valuable with that journey was I think it was because I've been around it, and a lot of people don't talk about it. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but like, we know of people that have gone through it, but it's not as if we've just sat down and said, hey, tell us all about it. It's almost like you mentioned, y'all didn't tell anybody early on. And obviously it's years later that you've really written about it and shared about it. What was this wasn't a question I was going to ask, but I'm going to go here. What was that isolation factor like? Because you probably were in a pretty public life. A lot of people knew, like y'all had a lot of community around you, family and things like that. But yet you were going through this just with your wife very privately, and y'all at times were really keeping it private. What was that isolation like?
It's a great question. I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of podcasts, not been asked that question. And it's such a good question. So thank you for asking that. It was out of the norm for me to be that quiet, right? I'm an outgoing person. My wife's very outgoing. And so to keep that within us, we're pretty much an open book. We're not secret keepers. Initially, we were keeping that we were even trying to have children a surprise, because we were excited for that big reveal moment of telling our parents and our friends, we're pregnant, and so excited about that. So it started out from just that perspective of, we want to be able to bring this joy to people that we're close to, as our friends were bringing it to us, and we were so excited for them. And so it started from that perspective. Then as the pressure was mounting and building, it did become lonely, because we were only talking to each other about it. So that's what it was like. It was a lonely experience with one person. Interestingly enough, though, Tim, when I look back, and now that I know what happened later, there was something beautiful in the loneliness when it was just the two of us, because our problems were smaller before Nicholas and Peter died. And so when I think of those years, there's a little bit of envy for that couple, because they didn't know yet what was going to happen to them. And so I look back at that version of us, so in the dark of thinking that life was hard, but had no clue what was coming and how hard it was going to get. And so when you think that you're at your low, to then wake up the next morning to be at a new low, that's really when you're kind of taking that assessment of, so this is our life, this is our path, this is where we're at. And as the book reveals, there was so many of those situations that continued to happen that going to the cemetery was a comforting place, because we felt like, again, okay, we can stay here and this is as bad as it could ever get, even as life continued to be hard.
That's a great response. I'm glad I was nudged to ask that question. The thought that kept coming to my mind while you were saying that, Johnny, and I don't know what the connection is here, but oddly enough, the struggle that I would put as one of our biggest challenges with my wife and I was when after 2008, we had business failure, went through bankruptcy, homelessness, stuff like that. And we were in an isolated situation. We felt as if it was just the two of us. I think the old song, "You and Me Against the World," or something like that. And while I wouldn't wish it on anyone, I am now thankful. I mean, you've got the word gratitude written in the tagline of your book. And I think a lot of people would look at your story and go, gratitude? Wait, what? There's gratitude here? But yet my guess, I'll just mention a few things, you could respond. My guess is the relationship that your wife and you have is probably much more, I don't know if mature. I think ours is more mature than it was. We were probably just two kids hanging out together, earlier on. So we're mature. And I love that perspective. And I'll just bring it up again that everything else seems to pale in comparison now that we've gotten those type of indicators or those type of situations. It's like, a business situation, So,
Right.
So anyway, there's not really a question there, but any response to that? I mean, it's like, because we've seen similar, I guess, is what I'm just saying.
Right. And so, and I like that you see that, that clarity, that perspective, that compared to life issues, business, you could fumble through those. That'll be okay. And I think when you talk about gratitude, the way that we got to gratitude, Tim, was really out of necessity and survival mode. That because our thoughts were so dark, because what had happened to us was so severe, that resting in those thoughts was too much. It was literally too much to function every day. It was too much to go to work. It was too much to try to deal with work issues that were at one point seemed so material and significant. And with that new perspective and this different lens that we're looking at life through was silly. And we're able to, we could solve that work problem. No problem. That's easy. That's not a problem, right? But before we were making it a problem or allowing it to be one. So I like how we got to gratitude. And it was not because that we're living with rose-colored glasses. It's because we had to get there because functioning was so hard. So the first thing that we had to be grateful for was the blessing to be Nicholas, Mary, and Peter's parents. And so spending time in gratitude for children that you're not raising and that you had a brief period of time with in a day, in this human existence, to rest in gratitude, there wasn't a natural path to get there, but it was the only way that we could move forward, so that we could not look at their lives as this tragic situation that they in part did to us, or that God did to us, or that it happened to us. It had to become something that was more respectful for their lives, that were not defined by the amount of time that we're here on earth, but the impact that we make. And so let's have their impact be a positive one. Let's have their impact be a great one. And that's really what it became. And at first, was it a leap to get our minds there, that their impact was beautiful? Yeah, it was hard to get there. But the more we said it, the more we saw it, the more it was revealed to us, the beauty in the action from the people around us, the doctors, the nurses, our friends, our parents, our family. It showed so much more for us, that we saw so much beauty in the world. We saw our faith, which was so strong during all of that, even more renewed, and even for passion for our faith, and never turning against that. And so there were so many good things that came out of it that we needed to start celebrating. We needed to verbalize them. We need to acknowledge them, and we need to embrace it and hold on to them, because those are the thoughts that got us to the next day.
That's good. You brought it up, and this was actually, you led right into my next question. I know from the book that there's a definite faith component to your life and a belief in God. Now, I wrote down the word eternal thinking. You brought it up in that last comment you made, that there is more to what we see and what goes on right here. But the question I want to ask related to that is, I know it's been a while now, but maybe you can kind of give a perspective. What was your faith like prior to this event? And then maybe some kind of description of where that faith is now, because I do believe you're a believer, you're churchgoer, follower of Christ, etc. before. But what did this journey do for your faith?
So we were both strong in our faith before, both raised in homes of faith, and attended church at Mass weekly. So faith was critical to us. We both went to faith-based Catholic schools. So faith was always in our life. It was a good part of our marriage. We were practicing our faith. So it was solid before. I will say, after their death, it was enlightened. It was taken to a new level, because we had never known such despair. And, it's said that you can't know true joy until you know true sorrow. We were feeling true sorrow. And so we were enlightened in a way. And enlightened in it. So Tim, it wasn't just enlightened about us and our feelings. Excuse me. We were enlightened about the walks that others go through that are so challenging, because ours to that point were very blessed. I mean, stable homes, committed parents that loved us, taught us our faith, taught us work ethic, had high standards for us. I mean, we were the lucky ones. We were, loved unconditionally and supported, and, really set on the good path of success. And so we felt after that we had a better understanding for real struggles that we had not experienced before. And so then we could empathize with others better. We can see life through really a more realistic lens. Certainly I said it wasn't rose-colored before, but now it was really realistic, and that this is how life can be. And that made us, I think, better people. It certainly shaped me as a leader at work, because it totally changed the way that I wanted to lead, with a much stronger recognition for what's going on in their home lives. And how am I sending them home after a work day? Uplifted and better for their family, or torn down and exhausted? And I expect them to leave their work, their personal problems at home, but I'm okay sending them home with work problems. Can't play it both ways.
You're a pretty hard charger, type A personality, leader type. Would that be your profile?
I am, but in the disc profile, I'm the dominance and influencer. So I love to influence people. So I'm uplifting. I do have high standards. I hold people to them. But I like to think that I do it in a way that is mindful that they are more than just an associate of mine professionally, right? That they have a faith life, they have a family life, and they have a professional life that I have a responsibility for. And so I took that responsibility very seriously, especially, even as a business owner, or as a top exec at Camping World, I really saw it as my job to come to work every day to make the people around me successful.
Yeah, that's good. It's interesting that my disc profile was a high D. Next was the I, and then went down into the SCs. But after we went through some of our challenges, the I started creeping up and took over the D. So I became the I became higher. I do think that we can be molded through this. And I think that's a positive thing. What is what are some other, I guess, spillover items from your journey that spilled over into professional work, just beyond that core family that you saw? Anything else that kind of impacted those areas? I guess positive or negative, but anything that impacted the other areas?
Well, I think it impacted in terms of the influence that I wanted to be over others, and it made me realize very clearly how impactful, positively or negatively, that we can be with a colleague at work. And so I took that really, really seriously. I took seriously the thought, even when I only had 80 employees in my dealership before selling and going to Camping World, that weighed on me heavily, leading and being responsible for 80 households and the decisions that I make. And so I think all of this kind of ups your sense of responsibility. The stakes are higher because it's not just about me. It's about all these people that have invested their professional careers in working with me and engaging with me and entrusting in me. And so, some of that, the negative impact would be the pressure side of that, right? The anxiety that you feel and the responsibility that you feel that if I make bad decisions, it doesn't just impact my household, it impacts all of my employees' households and the people that I work with and the people that I care about and the people that are working so hard on my behalf to represent our brand to the public. That's a heavy weight, right? And I think that some people don't see that. They think that, owning your own business, it's kind of the glorious spot and you get all these perks. And sure, there's plenty of good things. The money is good and the perks are better and all those kind of things. The respect that you're given, hopefully that you've earned. Those are all great things, but there's weight that comes with it as well. And I think that really was something that I wanted to take out of those years and those struggles, in realizing that everyone has struggles. I know how hard it was for me in the blessed life that I have to get my head around it. So I probably looked at others with a little bit more empathy. And I did shift from the DI to the ID, right, in the disc profile. And I've taken it a number of times over the years, and there's times and seasons that I'm more dominant, and there's seasons where I'm more influential.
Yeah, I tell people that I think you would have liked me okay had you met me, 25 years ago, but it probably would have, my high intensity, my go might have made you uncomfortable at times. Whereas now my pace seems a little bit different. I do have a different perspective. Do you think that you would have, I know that y'all did an exit. I'm going to talk about some business stuff here shortly, but would you be doing what you are today? I mean, had you not been through the trials, through the challenges that you guys went through?
First of all, I want to comment on, my goodness, I was off-putting, I'm sure.
I know I was. I'm trying to be nice to myself.
Yeah, I was a challenge at times, and it was never in a yelling, screaming way. It was just in the intensity and pushing way. I didn't yell and scream, but I did have high standards, and so
I think did you walk fast? Were you a fast walker when you walked around the office? Did you walk in? You walked up to people's desk real quick and bam, and then you were gone?
Yeah, I mean, moving fast. And I still walk too fast now. Or sometimes, just last night coming back from tennis, I said to my wife, "What are you doing back there? Come on!" And it's like, just got off the court. It was a grueling match. Slow down. And she's so right. She's so right. So, I think that professionally, there are so many things that I would do differently at times with my intensity. And I think in my younger years, you know, overall, and then I'm going to answer your question. My younger years, I just wish I was more of a full person. I think I was so intense on the career path that I hadn't fully developed myself. But in terms of doing what I'm doing now, I don't believe if our past didn't happen the way it did, that I would have felt at the age of 50 to decide to retire and walk away from future earnings that were ridiculous. I don't think I would have done it, right? Because I would have been so financially focused, and that would have been my driver. But instead, on my 50th birthday, which was the day of Camping World's IPO, when we went public, on that day, other thoughts were stirring within me that it's time to go and go do other things and go make an impact and make a difference in other areas, and some of them in the leadership space and doing more public speaking and all of that. And so I don't think I would have done that had our story been different.
Yeah, I keep wanting to go off into another direction, but I feel like we're circling some things here that I really like. I very similar. I mean, I remember I would walk around offices, we had some companies way back when, and I'd be a fast walker and all. And this is what I recognize about myself. I'll just say this, and then you could say, yeah, it was similar. And because I think it fits into this whole thing of gratitude. I felt as if I was on a mission. This was this high D, and that when I got to a certain place, then I would relax, chill, take a vacation or something like that. But as I've gone through life, I've recognized, and I'm still working on this, that the journey, the day to day, the minute to minute, the second to second is so much more important than the place that I think I may be going. And I'm sort of hearing the same thing. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that anymore, Tim. I mean, for me, that recognition of setting that goal and then getting there and feeling like, no big deal. Didn't set the goal high enough, so now stretch it further. Whether it's having, X amount of money in savings, right? And then once I get there, I'll be fine. Then I can relax, right? Then you get there and you're like, no, new standards, raise the number. And so we can do that in relationships as well, not just monetarily. It's easy to measure. When there's X number of millions that you have, that then I'll be at peace, and then I'll be a better person, and then I'll be more charitable. Boy, that's a slippery slope when you start, pushing off what you should be doing today for later once you're more comfortable. And I know that I'm a work in progress, continuing to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's kind of funny that right now I see a lot, and I'm really into fitness and working out, and so many people that I follow on Instagram are into these ice baths. And the theory is get comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? And I hate being cold. I mean, shouldn't use the word hate. I hate being cold. Despise it. And cold water is way at the top of the list. And tepid water is even a problem for me. Like, I need a warm pool. And so I have so much respect for those people that say, every morning at 6 a.m. when I get in this 40-degree ice bath for 3 minutes, I literally hate it. And I think I'm going to find myself doing that at some point, because as much as I hate it, I'm drawn to it because I want to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I love the challenge that they put out with that. And so, the older I get, the more I realize the ways that I still need to evolve, managing the thoughts that I have, managing what is enough. And, going back to our beginning conversation, we had to come to terms with the time that we had with them alive was enough. Instead of saying, but I wish we could have had them another year or 5 years or 10 years, all those wishes weren't happening. And so to hold on to those thoughts instead of letting them go was a problem. So then when you let those thoughts go, you're left with what we had, which was a short time. Why can't that be enough, right? Why can't we just take that and say, we got this experience and there was beauty in it, there was grace in it, and there was wonder and amazement, what God created and through us. And we had that experience that about as a family of 5 for a brief period of time. Let it be enough, Johnny. Don't ask for more always. And I think that's what we always tend to do. We ask for more friendships, we ask for more money, we ask for more blessings. You know, it's constant. And so, you know, when with our friendships, you know, instead of pouring into some that we have, that your eyes always wandering to these other interesting people, which I'm drawn to interesting people. I love it. And so when I do that, then I say, okay, I'm going to invest time in this. I don't want to just have a quick encounter with somebody. I want something to be meaningful. So then it's going to take some energy and effort.
Yeah, that's I think it's good. I got like 2 or 3 things from all of that. First thing, I want to address the ice bath thing. I'm similar. I love me a good warm shower. And I was actually spending some time praying and saying, God, you know, do I need to do these? This is a little bit funny. God, do I need to do these ice baths and things like that? And I felt like, God, this is just me now. He said, why would you do that when I gave you warm water? but I get the discomfort. All right, this is maybe a serious question, maybe not here before we move on a little bit. I work with executives and executive teams, high performance people. I know you surround yourself with those people. You know, you're one yourself. I actually, at times, really wonder how we go about making significant change. Going from the Johnny of 24 years old to the Johnny of 54 years old, the Tim of 30 to the Tim of almost 60. And at times I go, you know what? I really do believe that we can focus, maybe hire a coach or do something or go through something where we go through a program where we really make those changes. But then, Johnny, I get concerned at times that the only way we really make those changes is when we go through some form of a catalytic event. When something really hits us like you went through and I went through and others. And I would hope that that's not the case, because I would hope that we wouldn't be sitting here as 2 people having this mature conversation that, you know, to really go through some change in life, you're going to have to go through some type of an event, but it plays into the life is hard. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, could Johnny have developed into the man he is today without going through that massive struggle?
You know, I don't think so. I think we all have inclinations of, you know, our spirit and who we are, and we're challenged by situations and we're challenged by people. So I do say, I don't think I'd be the man I am today had I not had that experience, had I not had the experience of raising the 3 children that we were blessed to raise, experiencing adoption go well, as opposed to the failed adoptions that we had, experiencing pregnancies that ended up well, even though with more premature babies, but they did okay. They did great. And so all of those, right, shape who we are. I think, you know, it kind of reminds me of the thought of today. So many people say, you know, got to be your authentic self. And I say, Tim, I don't even know who my authentic self is. Right. I mean, I'm just the sum of the circumstances and the people I've encountered.
I used to think I knew way back when. Had you asked me at 25, I would have said, oh yeah, this is this. But the more mature I get, I hope the word's mature, I'm not even sure what that looks like. Sounds like you're going through a similar journey.
Exactly. Because I realize there's times that I say certain things, I can say, wow, I really like that, but that came from so-and-so. Somebody planted that seed in me, and I've taken that thought, I've internalized it, brought it in. I can't even remember who did, but I know I didn't used to think like that. I didn't used to have my heart open to that. And now that I do, it's because of the influence that I've had from others, people that I've respected and loved, and I've been blessed to come in and out of my life. And so my authentic self is emerging and evolving every day. And, I don't really know what or who that is. And I know more of what I want to become than I know of what I really am. And it doesn't say I don't know myself. Back to your question, I mean, the catalyst that we have to change can be one of two things. It could be an adverse event that many of us experience, where you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, now what? What am I made of? Or you can not wait for that to happen, and you can have that hard look in the mirror and be your own catalyst to say, let's really examine what I see in front of me. And so in my leadership coaching, I think that's one of my jobs, to hold up the mirror to someone to say, this is what I see when I'm looking at you. I want you to tell me what you see. And oftentimes, right, they just don't align. They misfire. And I've been blessed to coach some people along the way and bring out the best in them, where they were carrying so much of their junk and insecurities with them from their past that they couldn't even live in their present. They were trying to fulfill a title that they've been given, right, which comes with power. And that power can easily be taken away from you when you lose that title, versus trying to establish authority with people, where when we think about authority, we can think of an old coach that we had who had great authority over us when they were coaching us, but we see that coach 30 years later and we say, Coach, how are you? And they have no authority over us today, but they're still an authority figure in our lives, right? That's so much more interesting to me than power. And that's what people seek oftentimes at work. So, taking that hard look in the mirror, people don't want that honest reflection. John Maxwell tells us that the hardest person to lead is yourself, right? Because we judge ourselves by our intentions, and we judge others by their actions. And so if you're going to really, look at yourself on what you intended to do, even though you didn't do it, but you give yourself the credit for doing it, it's just not an honest look in the mirror.
Yeah, I think that looking in the mirror is good. As you were saying that, I was thinking about my readings in the morning have been from the book of Exodus, and I've been reading about Moses taking the people of Israel out of Egypt. And at least 13 times in there, it speaks about Pharaoh's heart being hardened. And I look back on myself and I look at some business people maybe that are in the arena like we were. And while we were achievers, successful and all that, I think some would say, and I think we could probably admit, that our hearts were probably harder than they need to be. And it appears to me like your journey, Johnny, my journey, the journey probably of life is about softening our hearts. And I think that's powerful. And I appreciate all that you've talked about and written. I do want to make sure, though, that I get the story of your RV journey, your business. I want to hear a little bit more about that, especially because I'm coming to you from the RV here. So in light of that, I don't think it's a big shift away from what we've been talking about, but
No.
give while all of this was going on in your life, y'all had a family business. It was an RV business, and then later got acquired, and then later you did an IPO. Tell a little bit of that story, and maybe just kind of weave it in along the way here before we finish up and wrap up.
Sure. So, my dad was one of the pioneer dealers in the 1950s. Starting in a young growing industry, he started renting out some tent campers from his gas station, and ended up over time selling the gas station and then becoming a full-time RV dealer with his older brother. And so it was something I was born into. My dad's dealership was older than me. And so I grew up working in the dealership. Never really liked the RV lifestyle much. It wasn't for me. And so what you're doing, I love hearing people doing it. It was never anything that I wanted to do. Maybe because it was the family business, who knows? But I love the lifestyle. I love what it did for families. And the time that you and your wife have together on the road, seeing our amazing and beautiful country, and getting to experience living in different markets across the country, that's the best of the RV lifestyle right there, and traveling in your own comforts of home. So, I came back to the family business. My dad picked my major when I was going to college, said, you're going to be an accounting major. I don't want anyone to ever have you rely on someone else to understand our profit and loss statements and our balance sheet. And so I said, okay, Pops, I'll do that. And I went and got the accounting and finance degree in undergrad, and then grad school came later in my early 30s, and that was organizational behavioral management, which really prepared me for the Camping World days. I'll say that, having my master's in that space. And so I was running the family business. My dad, unfortunately, got cancer when I was 28, and then he was no longer working, and it was just me. And in the space with other family members that I absolutely loved and was privileged to work with other family members. And then when I was 36, was right when Camping World was getting started in their dealership expansion phase. And I was one of the first dealers contacted, and I was blessed to come on the team as a regional president. And I went out and I was buying other stores across the country and doing the M&A work. And then after about a year or so of that, I was moved into the national role for operations. And so I created all the teams, the service team, the finance and insurance team, the business development center teams, all of that. And absolutely, it was a dream, really, because it was an industry that I knew, and in a space that in a growing company with great people in the organization, I was blessed to be able to work alongside some really, really great people. And then over time, I became president. And then in the last 4 years before my retirement, I was chief business development officer over the parent company in the Good Sam and Camping World brands. And so did a lot of business dev work, and it was a great career. It was, good people, and an industry that goes through ups and downs, right? Whether it's interest rates or gas prices or, whatever it might be. And it's a little tougher time right now in the RV industry. The market's still out there for it. Consumers are still loving it. But the new unit production is going to be down in 23. It'll bounce back. It always does. And it always has, because it's a great American pastime.
The interesting thing about it is, being a business guy, when I'm out and about, we're traveling, I'm kind of looking and trying to gauge just from literally boots on the ground, what's going on in the industry. And right here where we are now, I mentioned before we hit record that we're just outside of Zion National Park in Virgin, Utah. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new RV resorts type things being built. And I am looking at it going, I'm wondering if they're overbuilding what the demand might be. There's even these cool little things now where they're building what would be an RV resort, but they're putting Airstream trailers on those, permanent. So when people come stay, they stay in a camper, but yet they don't have to haul it and do that kind of thing. It's very, very fascinating industry that I never knew much about, because I never camped or anything growing up either. And my wife and I moved in an RV 4 years ago about now. So we've been traveling in our tiny home, and it is kind of a cool thing to see the country from a very different perspective than being in an airplane. So that's
right. You meet such
interesting.
great people in the industry, right? In the campgrounds, so many people that are just, the events and the rallies that Camping World would do over the years. I'd love to go to those and to meet the people who were, the pulse of the industry, and the technology that's been added to RVs over the years, the comfort. I mean, it's really cool space to be in. I serve on a board of a publicly traded company in the RV space, Lippert Components, and seeing it from the manufacturing side, right? I knew it from the retailing side, but seeing it from the manufacturing side is just fascinating, and the commitment that's there. It is. I think there's an appropriate number of parks that are being built for the lifestyle, because it is a, it went through its, small family kind of adventure. And then you started seeing the celebrities and the John Maddens and their, buses that they were taking across country. And then there's certainly had a little bit more maybe cachet associated with it, and rock bands and such. And now it's back to good people that just want to enjoy life. And I think COVID certainly taught us that that we need to do that. Any tough time economically we go through, we know that we need our enjoyment, and Americans love the RV lifestyle. And so it's definitely here to stay, and it's growing every year.
Yeah, it definitely is. From where I'm sitting, literally from where I'm sitting, I can see that. So very exciting there. So you were part of the organization. They went through an IPO. I'm guessing that definitely fed into your, you said retired a couple times, but I'm going to go back to what your wife said, repurposed, because that's what she's calling you. And I think we need to get you using that word more. Repurposed. Opened up a lot of opportunities for you. I'm guessing that, when you go through an IPO, typically that means some blessings financially and some other things. In our last couple of minutes here, what's one of the projects that you just want to mention to the audience? Maybe it relates to some things we've talked to. Maybe it's something different, because I see from the list here, you've got a lot of things that you're currently working with. It's got to be cool to be on different boards and see different things. What's one thing you might want to mention here before we finish up?
I'll tell you, Tim, there's it's hard to pick one. I'm going to pick a couple quickly because I'm in so many different spaces that it just, really, really fun. I'm in the spirits industry with, one of my fraternity brothers and old college roommate. And so Angel's Envy, he was a big developer behind that. I invested in that project. Now we have Heaven's Door with Bob Dylan. Angel's Envy, we sold off. Heaven's Door with Bob Dylan, so that's a fun one. There are other spirit brands as well that we're developing and part of. So that's a really interesting part, and the creativity behind that is so interesting. Another company I invested in and I serve on their board is doing the only medical trial in the world on concussion therapy, and so that's a space that I'm super interested in, mostly athletically induced concussions. And so just coming out of the FDA trials on that, finished phase 2 of that last year, just got the insurance codes issued from the FDA. And so working on that project and working to commercialize that and serving on that board. Again, super smart people, just loved going into that and learning, right, about something that's totally new. With some other family members and friends, we started a company called Society Brands that is in the aggregator space of Amazon type companies that are selling digitally online. So we're buying those up and packaging that together. That's been a fascinating project. And then still, we were in the clothing and furniture business. Laura of Pembroke, I'm going to a little plug for that business, lauraofpembroke.com. I've been in that business for 35 years. So it's women's clothing, accessories, home gifts, and full line home furnishings and interior design. And so there's a number. Dapper Classics is a sock company that I invested in, American made socks for men and men's accessories. And so for me, the exciting thing every day sitting at my desk coming to work is, what am I going to focus on today? And whether it is a podcast for the book, if it's working on my next book, which is more in the leadership lane, if it is, working on one of the businesses or various board calls, every day is diverse and different. So I do feel repurposed, right? I'm not staying in the lane that was the one that I knew so well, that the finances were so incredible. It was, I wanted to venture out and do different things. And that's not for everybody. Some people like playing it safer, and that's okay too. For me, I just felt a call that I wanted to do some things differently. And in whatever time God was going to give me left, as my dad got cancer in his 50s, a lot of those circumstances that we have in our lives play on us and impact our decisions. And so I thought, this is my time to go out and do some different things. And so my wife and I enjoy, we've been empty nesters now for about 5 years. And so we spend our winters in Naples, Florida, and then our summers back in Canton, Ohio. And just really trying to enjoy life and continue to meet good people. And my prayer is for God to put the people in my path every day that I'm meant to meet and meant to engage with. And maybe some things are really purposeful that come out of that, and maybe others are just a little bit more just a great way to energize each other, and you walk away from that.
Yeah. Sounds like you're having fun.
We are. I'm enjoying it. There's days that I totally miss what I was doing at Camping World, for sure. It was a great experience. So there's days that I miss that. There's days that I miss Sirpilla RV, going back, 20 years ago, to that. There's these seasons of life, and I'm a big believer in that. And there's times to go back into a past season, but not dwell on them, not focus on them. But maybe every now and then you do step back a little bit, and that's okay.
Hmm. So even though life is hard, you consider yourself successful now, sounds like.
Full family life, that's my success. 32 years of marriage, 3 great kids that Susan and I both have amazing relationships with. They all went to the same college as your daughter, High Point University, which was an amazing Christian school. They all chose the same college, and now they all chose the same city, Chicago, to live in after college. And it's a pretty cool thing as a dad to see your kids having their own relationships as adults, wanting to be together in college and then wanting to be together outside of college, even though they have their independent careers, their independent friendships and relationships. They can always go back to a sibling, and they see each other a couple times a week. So it's cool.
Yeah, that was a good answer. I was actually going to ask you to catch us up with the family, but you just did it there. So that fed right into what I was going to ask. Where can people connect with you, find the book? Go ahead and tell us about that. And then I've got one more question before we wrap up.
So, I want to comment one thing on the family first, that, I put that in the book, that, life is hard, but I'll be okay. And it's a lesson that I wanted my kids to learn as well, because they're finding that even medically with, one with Lyme disease, a chronic disease that he'll always have, another with rheumatoid arthritis, that is extremely challenging for him every day, another one with severe anxiety and working through that. So, those are all medical issues that are impacting our kids' lives every single day. And so, I want them to know that they are going to be okay. And there's so many times that we've said that to them in the darkest doctor's appointments, in the darkest times, that you can't even see your way out of it. Lyme disease, I mean, in that case, my son, his infection went to his brain, and he couldn't work for 7 months. And so you see that level of illness and depression, and he couldn't move, the joint pain, it's going to be okay. And now 4 years out of it, still, managing it, he is okay. So I get encouraged by that. And so where to find me? On Instagram, Johnny Sirpilla, at Johnny Sirpilla, my website, at johnnysirpilla.com, or encourage33.com. They're both linking to each other. And that's probably the best place to find me. And I love engaging with people, so I love to see comments on the book. Anyone that's read the book, Tim, if you could leave a review on Amazon, I'd greatly appreciate it. I go back and I read these reviews from people that I don't know, that I'm just so humbled by. And I really appreciate people giving their time to me to read the book. And so for you doing that, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed it. I like when things stretch me, and it did stretch me, and I appreciate that. Johnny, we are Seek, Go, Create. Those 3 words, we mashed them together to title our podcast. I'm going to let you pick one of those words that maybe means more, resonates more with you right now, whatever. Seek, Go, or Create. I'm going to let you choose one, and why as my final question.
I'm going to go with create. And I think that I feel at a creating stage of my life right now. I feel like I'm at a time where, I want to create new relationships, create new meaningful impact with other people, and making a difference, creating change. And so there was times when I was certainly seeking and going. I feel like right now I'm all about creating health. I can go down that path in a number of different ways, but I'm in the create phase, and I'm excited to be, 56 years old and in the create phase of my life.
Yeah, that sounds good. It doesn't sound like someone who's retired to me. So, you brought that word up a couple times. I don't think that sounds like retired. So anyway, Johnny Sirpilla, thank you so much for this conversation. Author of the book, Life is Hard, but I'll Be Okay. And we definitely have the conversation today. And I would agree that he is okay, even though that we know that life can be hard. I recommend you get the book, go to the places he mentioned. And one of the real requests here before we jump off, if you've been listening in, share this with someone. I mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast, but I am very positive that someone probably definitely you, but someone needs to hear this message that Johnny shared. And I would recommend you take a screenshot of the podcast, or if you're on YouTube where you're watching it, or social media where we post it, share this with someone that jumped to your mind while you were listening into this conversation with Johnny. I appreciate you being here at Seek, Go, Create. We have new episodes every Monday. Make sure you follow us. Until next time, continue being all that you were created to be.